Hey, this is Victor Antonio, and welcome to Let's Talk Sales, where we just talk sales, just you and I, one-on-one, having a real conversation about real things without all the hype, the fluff, and the hyperbole. So let's just chat. Today's topic is really, last week I was doing a big event. It was a great event, and I always wind up talking to salespeople, and usually they're struggling, right? And in my mind, my mind always races to a certain model I'm going to share with you today when it comes to trying to diagnose what is their problem. So when salespeople say, "Look, I'm not hitting my number. I'm just not where I want to be with my number," in my mind, it comes down to three things, and that's what I want to share with you. I drew a little graphic for you here, and I thought I'd make it simple. And it's all about skill, which you've heard, will, and then resources. Skill, will, and resources. And so let's talk about all these three, because if you don't align all these three, you're going to struggle. Let's begin with the obvious one, which is skill, which means you have to develop a skill in selling. Now, when we talk about selling, usually the initial reaction is, Victor, I don't like to sell. I don't like to pressure people. And that's the model a lot of people have in their head. And I get that. And I think you need to change that if that's how you're thinking, because selling isn't about trying to get people to buy something they don't want. It's really about getting them to buy something that they need, or maybe sometimes they don't even know they need it, and that's why you're there. So it's really about sharing great content, a great product, or a great service, and letting them decide. Again, I always say, always sell how you're comfortable. Don't try to sell like somebody else. It never works. Trust me, it never works. So when we talk about developing the skills in selling, what skills do you specifically need to develop? Well, let's begin with the basic. I always talk about the basics. I always talk about you got to learn how to be a product of the product. And by that, that's a good phrase, be a product of the product. And that means, use the product. Really use the product and learn why people would want that product. See, when you begin to use a product, you begin to understand why it helps you, then you can explain why it would help other people because you've used it. You're a product of the product. Now, there's going to be certain cases where you just can't be a product of the product. For example, let's say you sell a $1 million B2B type enterprise platform, right? Well, maybe it's not possible for you to use that platform. Well, another way to get the information, to be a product of the product, so to speak, is to speak to customers who are actually using it and then ask them, why do you like the product? How is it helping you? How is it really helping your business grow or scale? And really understanding their perspective, taking their point of view, their POV, will allow you to really talk about the product, even though you're not a product of the product. But again, if we don't empathize with our customers, really try to understand what it is they need, we'll always struggle in selling. Whether you're selling a suit, you're selling clothing, or whether you're selling a high-tech piece of equipment, understanding why somebody would want your product or service is necessary and essential. So part of the skill set is kind of the soft part of the skill set is the empathy piece. Now, the tangible skills are you need to talk about the product. You need to understand the specifications of the product, right? Details, why it's different, being able to differentiate it from one from the other. And taking time to understand a product and their differentiation specs is what makes you a better salesperson. If you don't know the product, you're going to struggle in selling it because customers are going to ask you questions and you have to be prepared to answer those questions. That leads us to another skill that most people don't talk about, which is role playing. Look, one of the things I used to do when I first started in selling, I sold a lot of technology products. And there's so many tough questions that you're going to get from customers that's scary. So what we would do is we would practice like frequently asked questions, right? FAQs. And that means I would sit in a room with the top engineer and he would just bombard me with questions. And sometimes they were real subtle questions, like really tricky questions. But he wanted me to understand how to respond. And as soon as I responded wrong, he was like, that's wrong. And it was irritating. It's annoying. But you begin to learn how to answer questions and how to respond or when not to respond. Now, what happens is when I get in front of customers then, I was able to actually have a more casual, relaxed conversation because I knew what questions were coming at me. In fact, when I was doing the presentation, I was more relaxed because I had all these frequently asked questions, responses down in my head, so I knew how to answer them. So my question to you is, if you're selling a product or service, if somebody were to ask you a tough question, would you be able to answer it? And maybe sometimes you don't even know what the tough question is. So that's why it's good to find a partner in crime to ask you really tough questions. And again, you're going to have a dialogue with this person, and the other person who you've chosen as your partner has to be the type of person that isn't afraid to tell you the truth, especially if you answer incorrectly. So again, there's experts all around you. Tell them, make a list of all the questions. What are the toughest questions you would ask me about my product or service? What are the type of answers you would like to hear? Maybe write that down to help you build some of those answers. And having that database of questions and responses in your head will allow you to communicate more effectively. That's part of the skill set. So again, if you know the products, you know how to have the conversations with the customers, you understand their point of view, you've empathized with them, that is a giant leap forward in terms of being able to sell effectively. And again, it's not about selling, it's about sharing what you have to offer. If you have something of value, this irks me sometimes. If you really believe you have something of value, then it's your job, it's your duty, it's your obligation to share it with somebody because it may help them. Too often we're like, well, they're not going to need it. I don't think they'll want it. And you just shut down a sale before even a sale even occurred. In other words, we said no before they said no. Has that ever happened to you? I've seen people do this. I don't think they'll buy. I don't think they'll be interested. You're basically saying no for them without giving them the opportunity to say no. Now, why people do that, I don't know. I think it's fear of selling, right? Fear of rejection. But again, part of selling is that not everybody's going to want your product. Not everybody's going to want your service. You're going to get no. I'm always about, let me get the no as soon as possible so we're not wasting time. But I always come back to, in order to get people to say yes, you have to have the right skill sets. You have to empathize with your customers. You have to be able to present to them. You have to be able to answer the tough questions. You have to be able to make them feel comfortable buying your product or service, okay? Now, the second part, besides the skill piece, is the will piece. I know a lot of people who have the skills, who can sell, know the product, know the ins and outs. Just can really talk about the product. But they don't have the will to go out there and find business. See, the ability to go out there, find business, is all about consistency. That's a key word, consistency. So if you're prospecting for business, are you being consistent? How many people are you actually connecting with every day, every other day, whatever it may be? What does your schedule look like? When I create videos for my online channel, in my head, I know that every week I have to create 3 pieces of content. And I've been doing this for almost, 8, 9, 10 years. That's consistency. And people always ask me, well, Victor, how do you do it? How do you become so popular? How do people get to know you? Consistency. Always being out there, being a thought leader in the realm of selling. And so I'm asking you, when it comes to selling itself, how are you being consistent? How many people are you prospecting for every day? What are you doing on a day-to-day basis to make sure that people know you or your company exists? Again, a lot of people have a lot of skills. I know a lot of smart salespeople who are smarter than me, probably even better than me. But when it comes to consistency, I'm the person that's constantly doing my thing, and they occasionally do it. So if you occasionally do something, it's not going to work. You have to be consistent. Now, sometimes people have the skill. They have the will to want to do something, but then they lack the resources. By resources, I'm not just talking about money. Maybe it's tools that they need, whatever it may be. They lack the resources. This is where creativity comes in. Let's say, for example, that to do your job, you need to have certain software, pieces of equipment, whatever it may be, but you don't have the money. You don't have the resources. Your boss won't give you the resources. Then that's where creativity kicks in. Because one way or another, you're going to have to find a way to make it happen. Now, finding resources, they're all around us. I'm often amazed at how many free resources we have today. If you ever think about this, you can go on Google, for example. You can use the equivalent of Microsoft Office, which is their Google Sheets, which is Excel, your Google Docs, which is Word document. You can use all this stuff for free. PowerPoint, Keynote, all this stuff is free online. When you look at CRM systems, yeah, you can buy the expensive CRM systems, but there's some free systems available. When it comes to video, this video right here, when it comes to editing, you can find free editing software everywhere. The resources are all around us. You just have to be able to look. So again, don't use the lack of resources as an excuse for not doing your job, which is to go out there and sell a wonderful product or service that you have to offer. So again, if you're not hitting your number, if you're not killing it, ask yourself, where am I lacking? Where am I missing? Where am I falling short? Is it because I don't have the skills? If it is, then let's start studying. Look, free podcasts online, free videos like this online. Develop the skills. Now, if you do have the skills, but you're still not connecting, maybe you don't have the will. At this point, you need to ask yourself a question. Do you really like what you're doing? Do you like what you're selling? And sometimes it isn't so much that you don't like the company or you don't like the product, as you don't understand the value of what you're offering. Let me emphasize this one again. Sometimes we sell a product and we just see it as a product that we sell to a company or an individual or a small business, right? But we never take the time to understand, how is that really helping that company? How is my product or service really helping that company? I always use the example, I do sales training, and I've learned the value of my services, which means when I help a company sell, when I teach their sales teams how to sell, in my mind, what I am doing is I am helping a company survive and thrive. But not only that, I help them survive and thrive. Think of this. Every salesperson in that organization probably has a family, maybe 2 or 3 people. Because that salesperson was taught to sell by me, they're successful, they're making more money, they can actually support their family. This is a beautiful thing. When you look at selling from that perspective, you begin to see that I don't just offer sales training, I help companies grow and I help individuals with their family and maybe even help their kids go to college. You know what I mean? Find reasons that may give you that will to want to sell. Don't just do it for the money. Money's good. I'm not arguing that. But find something beyond money. Look how I'm helping people. Look how what I'm doing, what I'm selling is really helping companies or individuals. Last, if you have the skill and you have the will, find the resources to become more effective. Maybe you have the resources, but maybe you need to become more efficient in how you do what you do. So go ahead and do that as well. Look for the resources, the tools, they're all around us that you need to sell more effectively. Anyway, that's it for this little chat on Let's Talk About Sales. Let me know again what you think of this format. I'm trying to keep it real with you. I'm just trying to have a one-on-one conversation, and I'd really like your opinion on what you think of this format. This is Victor Antonio, always reminding you, you know the deal. Selling ain't hard when you know how. Take care.